For 68 years, I believed that family meant everything. I built my life around that belief, raised my children with that value, and trusted that the people who sat at my Thanksgiving table loved me as much as I loved them. My name is Dorothy, and I'm about to tell you how my son's wife planned my death over Sunday dinners while smiling at me across the mashed potatoes. I should start by telling you a little about myself. After my husband passed away 12 years ago, I inherited our family home in Scottsdale, Arizona, a beautiful 4-bedroom house with a pool that we'd bought back in 1987. Richard had also left me a comfortable retirement fund and his shares in a regional medical supply company that he'd helped build from the ground up. I wasn't wealthy by celebrity standards, but I was comfortable. More than comfortable, really. My son Thomas was my youngest. He'd always been the sensitive one, the child who brought home stray cats and cried during sad movies. At 45, he worked as an architect at a mid-sized firm in Phoenix. He was talented, kind, and absolutely terrible at seeing the worst in people. That's how Miranda came into our lives. They met at a charity gala 3 years ago. She was working as an event coordinator, 34 years old, with auburn hair and the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. Thomas was smitten immediately. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Within a year, married. I'll admit, something about Miranda never sat right with me. It wasn't anything I could point to specifically. She said all the right things, remembered birthdays, brought thoughtful hostess gifts. But there was something behind her eyes, a calculation that flickered when she thought no one was watching. I told myself I was being an overprotective mother. I told myself I was jealous of losing my son's attention. I told myself a lot of things. The trouble began last spring when I had a bad fall. I'd been watering my garden, stepped wrong on a loose paving stone, and fractured my hip. At 68, a fractured hip isn't a small thing. I needed surgery, then weeks of recovery and physical therapy. Thomas wanted to hire professional help, but Miranda volunteered immediately. "I can work remotely most days," she'd said, squeezing Thomas's hand. "Your mother shouldn't have strangers in her house. Family takes care of family." Thomas had looked at her like she'd hung the moon. The first 2 weeks were fine. Miranda helped me with meals, made sure I took my medications, drove me to physical therapy appointments. She was attentive, almost too attentive. She'd hover near my bedroom door, check on me multiple times during the night, insist on preparing all my food herself. By week 3, I started feeling worse instead of better. The doctors had warned me that recovery would be slow, but this was different. I was exhausted all the time, nauseous after meals, and my hands had developed a slight tremor that made holding my coffee cup difficult. Dr. Martinez said it was probably just my body adjusting to the new medications, maybe a mild reaction to the pain pills. She adjusted my dosage and told me to rest more. But the symptoms got worse. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything changed. Miranda thought I was napping in my bedroom. She didn't know that the new pain medication made it nearly impossible for me to actually sleep, just left me in a drowsy half state where I could hear everything but couldn't quite move. I heard her voice in the hallway, low and intimate. She was on the phone. "I'm telling you, it's working." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but my bedroom door was cracked open and sound carries in old houses. The tremors started last week. Her doctors think it's medication interaction. No one suspects anything. My blood turned to ice. "How much longer?" A pause while she listened. "Babe, I can't keep this up forever. Thomas is starting to notice I'm stressed, and her daughter keeps calling, wanting to visit." Another pause. 2 more months is too long. She's tougher than she looks, this old woman. Can't you get me something stronger?" I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. My own daughter-in-law was standing 15 feet away, casually discussing how to speed up my murder. "Listen. Once she's gone, Thomas inherits everything. The house alone is worth $1.2 million in this market. And those company shares? I checked. They've tripled in value since her husband died. We just need to be patient a little longer." She laughed softly. The sound made my skin crawl. "I love you too. I'll call you tonight when Thomas is asleep. Same time as usual." I heard her footsteps moving toward the kitchen, heard the refrigerator open and close, heard her humming some pop song like she hadn't just discussed my death like it was a scheduling inconvenience. For the next hour, I lay perfectly still, my mind racing. My first instinct was to call the police. But what would I say? My daughter-in-law is being mean on the phone? I had no proof, no evidence, just the word of a 68-year-old woman recovering from hip surgery against a charming, devoted wife who'd given up her own comfort to care for her mother-in-law. No. If I was going to expose Miranda, I needed to be smart about it. That night, when Miranda brought me my evening tea, I pretended to drink it while she watched. The moment she left, I poured most of it into an empty medication bottle I'd hidden under my pillow. I did the same with my breakfast smoothie the next morning, and the soup she made for lunch. Then I called my daughter. Rachel lived in San Francisco, where she worked as a prosecutor for the district attorney's office. We hadn't been as close as I'd hoped over the years. She'd always been independent, fierce, maybe a little resentful that I'd seemed to favor Thomas during their childhood. I hadn't favored him, he just needed more protection. But Rachel had interpreted my worry for him as preference, and that wound had never fully healed. Still, when I called her that Friday morning and said only one sentence, she listened. "Mom? What's wrong?" "Rachel, I need you to come home. Don't tell Thomas. Don't tell anyone. Just come." Silence on the line. Then, "I'll be there tomorrow morning." She arrived at 6 a.m., letting herself in with the spare key I'd told her about. I was already awake, sitting up in bed, waiting. "Mom, you look terrible." She pulled up a chair next to my bed, and I saw real fear in her eyes. "What's going on?" I told her everything. The phone call, the symptoms, the samples I'd collected, the man Miranda had called Babe. Rachel's face went through several emotions as I spoke. Shock, disbelief, then something cold and focused that I recognized from her courtroom days. "Have you eaten or drunk anything she gave you since Thursday?" "I've been pretending, dumping everything when she's not looking. I've been sneaking water from the bathroom tap." "Good." She pulled out her phone. "I know a private lab in Phoenix that can rush toxicology tests. Former colleague runs it. If there's something in those samples, we'll know within 48 hours. But the hardest part was still ahead. "Rachel, I need to keep acting normal. If Miranda suspects anything, she might run. Or worse, she might do something desperate. You want to keep living with the woman who's trying to kill you? I want to catch her. I want proof that Thomas can't deny. You know your brother. If we just accuse her, he'll think we're ganging up on his wife. He'll defend her. He might even cut us off completely." Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay, but I'm staying here. I'll tell them I took some time off work. Wanted to help with your recovery. Miranda can't exactly object to that without looking suspicious." For the next 3 days, Rachel and I played the most dangerous game of my life. She intercepted everything Miranda prepared for me, replacing my poisoned meals with safe alternatives she made herself. She filmed Miranda discreetly whenever possible, and she pretended to be the grateful sister-in-law, thanking Miranda for her dedication to our mother. The toxicology results came back on Tuesday morning. Thallium. Rachel's voice was flat as she showed me the report in my bedroom. A heavy metal poison causes exactly the symptoms you've been experiencing: hair loss, tremors, nausea, confusion. In high enough doses, it causes organ failure that looks like natural causes. I stared at the paper. Seeing it in black and white made it real in a way that hearing the phone call hadn't. "She's really trying to kill me." "Yes." Rachel sat down heavily on the edge of my bed. "The levels in your tea samples were low enough to cause gradual poisoning over weeks. Undetectable unless someone specifically tested for it. If I hadn't come, if you hadn't overheard that call." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Now we call the police," I said. "Not yet." Rachel's prosecutor instincts were kicking in. "We have evidence of poison. We don't have evidence that Miranda is the one administering it. A good defense lawyer could argue anyone had access to your food. We need more. What do you suggest?" "I want to find out who she's working with. That man on the phone. Babe. If this is a conspiracy, we need to expose all of it." Over the next week, Rachel did what she did best. She investigated. She discovered that Miranda's event planning business was essentially defunct. The company existed on paper but hadn't filed taxes in 2 years. More digging revealed that Miranda had significant credit card debt, nearly $80,000, that Thomas knew nothing about. Then, Rachel found Marcus Webb. He was a financial advisor based in Tucson. 42 years old, divorced twice, with a history of SEC complaints that had never quite resulted in charges. His specialty was helping clients hide assets through complex investment schemes. His other specialty, apparently, was sleeping with married women and helping them steal from their husbands. They've been together for at least 18 months, Rachel told me. I found hotel receipts, shared Venmo transactions, even a joint bank account in the Cayman Islands with both their names on it. But that's not all. She pulled up something on her laptop. This is a trust document that Miranda had Thomas sign 6 months ago. She told him it was for estate planning purposes, to make things easier when you eventually passed away. I read the document, my hands trembling, and this time it wasn't from the poison. She made herself the executor? With full control over the house? Worse. If you die while Thomas is still married to her, she gets to manage the entire estate. And look at this clause here. She pulled up a different section. If Thomas predeceases you, everything goes to her directly. Your other children aren't even mentioned. Thomas signed this? He trusted her mom. She told him it was standard legal protection. I felt sick. My beautiful, trusting son had signed away his inheritance to a woman who was actively murdering his mother. We need to show him, I said. We need to show Thomas everything. Rachel shook her head. Not yet. I want Miranda to incriminate herself on recording. I want her to admit what she's doing where we can capture it. How? Leave that to me. Rachel's plan was simple but risky. She would pretend to find the toxicology report while going through my medications, then confront Miranda privately. The confrontation would happen in the kitchen, where Rachel had already installed a hidden camera she'd bought for exactly this purpose. If Miranda denied everything, fine. We'd go to the police with what we had. But Rachel was betting that Miranda would try to explain, would try to manipulate her the way she'd manipulated everyone else, and in doing so, she'd reveal more than she intended. The confrontation happened on a Wednesday afternoon while Thomas was at work. I watched from my bedroom doorway as Rachel walked into the kitchen where Miranda was preparing my lunch. Rachel held the toxicology report in her hand. "We need to talk," Rachel said. Her voice was steady, controlled. Miranda looked up with her perfect smile. "Of course. Is something wrong with Dorothy?" "This is wrong with Dorothy." Rachel slapped the report onto the counter. "Thallium poisoning. Someone has been slowly killing my mother, and you're the only one who's been preparing her food." Miranda's face went through a rapid series of expressions. Shock first, then confusion, then something harder. "That's a serious accusation, Rachel. I don't know what that report says, but I would never hurt Dorothy. I love her like my own mother." "Stop!" Rachel held up her hand. "I'm a prosecutor. I've spent my entire career watching people lie to my face. I know what guilt looks like. I know what's in my mother's food. And I know about Marcus Webb." Miranda went very still. "I don't know what you're talking about. The hotel in Tucson, the Cayman Islands account, the trust document you tricked my brother into signing." Rachel stepped closer. "I know everything. The only question now is whether you want to explain yourself or whether you want me to call the police and let them sort it out." For a long moment, Miranda said nothing. I watched her eyes, watched her calculating her options. Then something shifted. "Fine." Her voice was different now. The warmth was gone. "You want to know the truth? Your brother is a fool. A sweet, generous, hopelessly naive fool who believed that a woman 15 years younger actually found him attractive for his personality." Rachel didn't flinch. "Keep talking." "I needed money. Marcus and I had a plan. Target wealthy, lonely men with aging parents. The parents are always the key. They're the ones with the real assets. The ones who are vulnerable. The ones nobody questions when they get sick and die." Miranda smiled. It was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Dorothy was supposed to be easy. An old woman, recovering from surgery, already on a dozen medications, a few months of thallium in her tea, and it would look like complications from the fall. Natural causes. Everyone would be sad but not surprised. "And then?" Rachel's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Then Thomas inherits everything. I comfort him through his grief, suggest we sell the house since it holds too many memories, liquidate those company shares that are just sitting there. California is a community property state. Half of everything he gets becomes mine in the divorce." "You were going to divorce him?" "Eventually. Once I had what I needed, Marcus is waiting for me. We have plans. Miranda tilted her head. But you've complicated things, haven't you? Coming here, playing the concerned daughter. Rachel smiled then. A prosecutor's smile. I've done more than complicate things. She pulled out her phone and showed Miranda the screen. The red recording indicator was visible. You just confessed to attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy on camera. The Scottsdale Police Department is going to have a very interesting afternoon. Miranda's face went white. You bitch. She lunged for the phone, but Rachel was faster. She stepped back, putting the kitchen island between them. It's already uploading to the cloud. It's already sent to my office. Even if you grabbed this phone, it wouldn't matter. For a moment, I thought Miranda might attack her anyway. Her hands were clenched, her breathing fast. Then she seemed to deflate. What do you want? I want you to stay exactly where you are while I call the police. And I want you to explain everything to my brother. He deserves to hear the truth from you. That was my cue. I walked into the kitchen slowly. My hips still ached, but the tremors had already started to fade now that I wasn't being poisoned daily. Miranda stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. Dorothy, I thought you were. Dying? I finished her sentence. That was the plan, wasn't it? I looked at her for a long moment. I welcomed you into my family. I trusted you with my son's happiness. And you were going to kill me for a house and some stock certificates. Miranda had nothing to say. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They arrested Miranda on charges of attempted murder and fraud. She didn't resist. She didn't even look at any of us as they put her in the squad car. Marcus Webb was arrested the following day at his office in Tucson. The joint bank account, it turned out, contained nearly $200,000, money that investigators later traced to 3 other families Marcus and Miranda had targeted over the past 5 years. 2 elderly women in Nevada. A retired professor in New Mexico. All dead now. All ruled natural causes. Until now, telling Thomas was the hardest part. He came over that evening after Rachel called him. He walked in expecting a family dinner and found his mother and sister sitting in the living room with a police detective and a folder full of evidence. I'll never forget the way his face crumbled as he read through the documents. The bank statements, the toxicology reports, the transcript of Miranda's confession. No. He kept saying it over and over. No, this isn't possible. She loved me. She said she loved me. I wanted to go to him. To hold him the way I had when he was a child, and the world hurt him. But Rachel stopped me with a look. Thomas needed to process this himself. He needed to see the truth without us interpreting it for him. Finally, after almost an hour of silence, he looked up at me. She was really going to kill you? Yes, sweetheart. She was. And I let her into your house. I defended her. I signed that trust document because she said it would make things easier when you... He couldn't finish. You didn't know. None of us knew for certain until now. Thomas buried his face in his hands. I almost lost you because I was too blind to see what she really was. I went to him then, ignoring Rachel's caution. I sat down next to my son and put my arms around him the way I had when he was small. You didn't lose me. I'm still here. That's what matters. The trial took place 8 months later. Miranda and Marcus were both charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud in Arizona, with additional charges pending in Nevada and New Mexico for the deaths of their previous victims. Miranda tried to claim coercion, said Marcus had manipulated her into everything, but Rachel's recording destroyed that defense. The jury heard her coldly describe targeting lonely elderly people, heard her laugh about how easy Thomas had been to fool. She was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 35 years in state prison. Marcus got 40. Thomas's divorce was finalized before the trial even began. He moved back into my guest room for a few months while he put his life back together. We had a lot of long talks during that time. About trust and betrayal and how you recover when someone you loved turned out to be a monster. It wasn't easy for him. He went to therapy. He struggled with shame and self-blame. He questioned every relationship he'd ever had. But slowly, month by month, I watched my son rebuild himself. Rachel and I grew closer too. The wall that had been between us for so many years finally started to crumble. She came to visit every month, then every few weeks. We talked about things we'd never discussed before, her resentment about our childhood, my regrets about the mother I'd been. It wasn't perfect, healing never is, but it was real. Last Thanksgiving, for the first time in years, my whole family sat at my dining table together. Thomas, Rachel, Rachel's husband David, even my granddaughter Sophie, who'd just started college in Flagstaff. Before we ate, Thomas raised his glass. "To Mom," he said, "for being tougher than any of us knew, and for still being here to burn the dinner rolls." Everyone laughed. I had burned the rolls. Some things never change. "To family," Rachel added, "the real kind." I looked around at their faces. My children. My grandchild. The people who came when I called, who fought for me, who chose me over easy lies. "To second chances," I said, "and to never taking a single ordinary day for granted." We clinked glasses, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. Here's what I've learned from all of this. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, pay attention. I knew from the beginning that Miranda wasn't what she seemed, but I talked myself out of believing it because I wanted my son to be happy. Don't be afraid to ask for help. For years, Rachel and I had kept each other at arm's length. I almost died because I was too proud to bridge that gap sooner. The moment I reached out, she was there. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who show up when everything falls apart. It's your daughter flying across the country on no notice because you said, "I need you." It's an ex-husband's business partner spending his weekend helping expose a fraud. It's the neighbor who brings groceries without being asked. And most importantly, real love doesn't need your death to thrive. Real love doesn't calculate inheritance or count the days until they can sell your house. Real love shows up with recording equipment and a prosecutor's determination and says, "We're going to catch her." I'm 69 now. The thallium is long out of my system. My hip healed better than the doctors expected. I still live in my house in Scottsdale, the one Miranda wanted so badly, and every morning I make my own tea in my own kitchen with nothing in it but honey and a little lemon. Sometimes I think about those other women, the ones in Nevada and New Mexico who weren't as lucky as me, who trusted the wrong person and never got the chance to make another phone call. I testified at the additional trials, helped the families get whatever closure they could. Miranda will be in prison until she's almost 70. Same age I am now. I try not to feel satisfaction about that, but I'd be lying if I said I don't. What I want you to take from my story is this. Pay attention to the people around you. Notice when kindness feels calculated. Question the concern that comes with conditions. And call your family. Call them today. Not because something's wrong, but because you can. Because they're still there to answer. Because every ordinary conversation is a gift that some people would give anything to have one more time. I almost didn't get to have another Thanksgiving. I almost didn't see my granddaughter start college. I almost missed all of it because a woman decided my life was worth less than a house and some stock certificates. But I'm still here, and every single day, I'm grateful for that. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories like mine. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever had a gut feeling about someone that turned out to be right? I'd love to know I'm not the only one. Until next time, take care of each other, and maybe don't let anyone else make your tea for a while.